Andor Season 2, Episode 9 is here.
Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the
Everybody
procedure,
stay calm.
everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm.
Mon Mothma calls out Palpatine. The Rebels crew gets a mention. K2SO is brought to life, and Bix leaves Cassian. Just when I thought Episode 8 was the greatest episode of this entire series, Episode 9 says, "Hold my beer." And there's some pretty sketchy stuff going on with Luthen that we need to talk about. So with that being said, we got a lot to break down, so let's get into it. Episode 9 is titled, Welcome to the Rebellion. This is, of course, in reference to Mon Mothma officially joining the Rebellion as Cassian rescues her off of Coruscant. And with that, this episode opens on Coruscant. Although Episode 7 and 8 this week focused mostly on Gorman, since the massacre has come and gone in that spectacular Episode 8, we spend the majority of this episode on Coruscant and Yavin. Now, the opening scene of Episode 9 shows the Senator of Gorman, Senator Orin, getting arrested. The Empire's plan worked. From the propaganda to making the rebels think that they have a chance on Gorman, it led to the perfect storm where they could slaughter thousands of innocent Gormans and take over their entire planet, and to most people around the galaxy, the Empire looks like the heroes. And that means the Gormans look like the villains. So this senator from Gorman is being arrested. And as Bail Organa watches on, Orin screams out, "Remember this day. Remember Gorman." And the last thing he screams is a warning. This will be you someday. Screaming to all the other senators in the building. No one is safe from the Empire. As Bail Organa is joined by Mon Mothma, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is still the recast of Bail Organa. Tell me in the comments below, how do you feel about Bail Organa being recast? Because in this episode, he has a way bigger role than just saying hello and goodbye like he did in Episode 6. And with still 3 episodes left in Andor Season 2, it seems like Bail might play an even bigger role in the final arc. And if you don't know, the real reason for this recast is because Jimmy Smits, who's played Bail Organa for the entirety of the character's existence, had scheduling conflicts and was unable to film for this series. And that's why Benjamin Bratt had to come in and play the role. But it's still very strange to see a different actor play a character who we just saw in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series and who we will see a year later in Rogue One, and he looks completely different. But honestly, it didn't really bother me at all in this episode. So let's keep going. As Mon and Bail start to talk about the Gorman massacre and how many people died, Bail says, "Don't trust the Imperial news. The winner writes the story." And I mean, he's not wrong. The Empire is pumping out whatever they want the audience to hear. But Mon Mothma says they haven't won yet. They need to take the floor tomorrow. But as Bail reminds her, they will never let her take the floor. This doesn't seem to be a democracy any longer. I mean, the Emperor of the Galaxy made that pretty clear. So it's not guaranteed that Mon Mothma has the ability to make a speech. She needs to be granted the time in the Senate. Mon says the Emperor has gone too far this time. We need to stand up and speak the truth. And she also says they're going to need an exit strategy for after she calls out Palpatine in the middle of the Senate. But Bail says, "I'm not leaving."
I'm not leaving.
I'm not leaving.
He explains to Mon that he can't leave yet. They need to buy more time. Yavin is not ready. The rebellion is not ready. Sure, they've come a long way over the last couple of years, and you can tell from the Yavin that we saw in Episode 2 of this season versus the Yavin we see now, but they still have a ways to go before they can start competing with the likes of the Empire. So Bail needs to stay in the Senate so that the Senate doesn't collapse into darkness, and then there will be no hope at all. He just needs to buy more time for himself, though. Mon Mothma, on the other hand, can call out Palpatine, can escape Coruscant, and can go back to Yavin herself. And Bail will stay, as Mon Mothma puts it, as a hostage. We then cut to Luthen's gallery, where Clea is making Cassian a card to get into the Senate building. This 3D printer-looking device is pretty dang cool. But we see Cassian pulling out this dagger. This is the staff that Luthen was holding in Season 1. And Clea explains to Cassian what's going on. If Mon Mothma gives a speech, he's going to have to be the one who helps her escape. He can even keep up the same charade that he had on Gorman. He can still be Ronnie the journalist. And as Clea tells Cassian that this ID card can be used a lot more than just this one time, he says he won't be needing it because he's done after this mission. At this point, Cassian's been through it all, from being imprisoned by the Empire to almost being massacred by the Empire and pretty much everything in between. So at this moment, he seems to want to just hang it up. Just go live in the middle of nowhere with Bix and live happily ever after. But little does he know, the rebellion needs him a lot more then he knows. And that girl Bix of his is actually cooking up quite the tearjerker at the end of the episode. But we'll get to that later. But Clea is saying, what are you, too tired? You just witnessed the Gorman massacre. You should be willing to give everything for the rebellion at this point. You saw how the Empire just murdered thousands of innocent Gormans. That doesn't make you want to fight more? The senator that you're going to be saving is risking it all, putting a voice to the atrocity that you just survived. And Cassian gets angry, saying, when have I not come through? It's time that I start making my own decisions. Now that is
Ironic.
because by the end of this episode, his decisions are made for him when Bix leaves him no choice. And as per usual, we do see Starkiller's mask in the gallery. Tell me in the comments, will Starkiller ever be canon? Or is he just too damn powerful? We then cut across town on Coruscant, where Mon Mothma is staying in her senator's office. And her assistant, Erskine, is looking for listening devices planted by the Empire. And well, he finds one. Mon doesn't want to practice her speech that's calling out the Emperor if the Empire is listening to her. So she immediately destroys the listening device. Not really thinking of the downside, which is that the Empire knows that you destroyed the listening device. But Erskine tells Mon to go practice in the plaza, while he continues to search the rest of the room for listening devices. But little does she know that the only reason Erskine's telling her to go outside is to meet with Luthen. However, while she does, the Empire already notices that tracking device is gone. Now out in the plaza, while Mon Mothma is practicing her speech, Luthen arrives. We haven't seen Luthen since last week, so it's finally great to see him again. But there's a few things off about this scene. One, there was official images posted for Andor Season 2 over 6 months ago, and this was one of them. Clearly they were trying to make us think these stormtroopers were going to arrest Luthen or Mon Mothma. But this is just a completely altered photo because this never happens. Lucasfilm's over here playing mind games on us. But the other thing that's weird about this scene is that Luthen is there to warn Mon Mothma is that Bail Organa's team is corrupt. But the way that he gets this information is not revealed. However, it kind of is later on in the episode. And I think Luthen corrupted Bail Organa's team on purpose, but we'll get to that when it happens. Because in this conversation, Luthen reveals to Mon that Erskine works for Luthen and has since the wedding. Now, to us, the wedding feels like it was just a couple weeks ago, but in the galaxy far, far away, the wedding was really over 2 years ago. And this is just another example of why every conversation that Luthen is in is an important one. Because back during the time of that wedding in the first 3 episodes, when Erskine and Luthen are having this conversation, it seems like a nothing burger. Oh no, not again. But clearly it wasn't. And now Erskine works for Luthen, has been for over 2 years. And this revelation is not good news to Mon Mothma. She's very upset about this. Now she doesn't know who she can trust. But Luthen is telling her that Bail's team is corrupt, and she can't tell anyone that she knows this information. And Mon Mothma, with tears in her eyes, says, do you even remember Tacoma, the banker, her childhood friend? Back in episode 3 of the 2nd season, we see Cinta drive away with Tacoma in the back seat, and he's never seen again. He died. But Luthen gave the order because he was a loose end. Luthen didn't care, but Mon did. It was her childhood best friend. And Mon Mothma says, I'm more afraid of you now than anything. And Luthen says, I'm sorry about Erskine, but you can't trust Bail's team. He tells her that he's going to send somebody that he trusts, Cassian. You'll ask him if he's alone, and he will say, I have friends everywhere. This is a callback to episode 5, which is titled, I Have Friends Everywhere, and is sort of the secret code word to know if you're working with Luthen or not. We then cut back to the ISB headquarters, where Supervisor Legret is called in because of the situation in Mon Mothma's Senate chamber. Not only has the listening device been shut off, but her driver, Clorvis, who is a ISB spy, has been waiting all night for her so that he can drive her back home. We then cut back to Mon Mothma's office, where Erskine has checked the entire room and there's no more listening devices. However, Mon now knows that Erskine works for Luthen. She is not happy about it. She says, I've never felt this betrayed in my life. And she dismisses him, as he says it's been an honor. We fast forward to the next day, the day of the speech, where we see Luthen and Cassian. Last we saw of these two, they were screaming at each other in episode 6, so Luthen really wasn't sure if Cassian would come. He even asks about Wilmot, who, as we know in episode 7, stayed on Gorman to go find Drina, his girlfriend, so he doesn't know if he's made it out alive. Cassian says, so we get Mon Mothma out and she goes to Yavin, but not you? And Luthen says, no Yavin for me. There's still some bridges that he needs to burn. I'm pretty sure Luthen's never making it to Yavin. His death is going to be a very big one, but more importantly, the rumor is that we're going to get the backstory for Luthen in episode 10. Who really is this guy? What is his background? That will all be very interesting. But I think Luthen's death is also going to be very important, and I'm about 99.9999% sure that will happen next week. But Cassian says, Luthen, they're going to find you here. You got to get off of Coruscant. Well, Luthen's response is, you act like we have a choice. Eventually, they're going to hang both of us. Now, honestly, he's not that far off. From what we know, Cassian does die to the Death Star, to the Empire, in Rogue One. We don't know how Luthen dies, but I'm sure it's probably going to be to the Empire. Clea comes in as she just got off the phone with Erskine and says we pretty much know nothing. We don't know if she's going to give the speech today. We don't know if Bail Organa's people are already there. It's a pretty flawed plan, but we need Cassian in the building to get her out safe. And Cassian says, and if she gets arrested, it all comes down. Everything is riding on this mission. The stakes are unbelievably high, not just because Mon Mothma was calling out Palpatine in the Senate, but because if she gets arrested, like Senator Oren did at the beginning of the episode, then Luthen, Clea, Yavin, Bail, Cassian, they're all done. All this work would have been for nothing. So we cut to the Senate building where Erskine and Cassian have just arrived, and so have Bail Organa's team. And this girl is the one who is corrupted. But we'll get to that in a second. We then get another conversation between Mon and Bail, as Bail informs her that a team of 3 is waiting for her when she's done, and she has to do what they tell her to do so that they can make it out safely. However, Luthen scared Mon, so she has to ask, do you trust them? Which he says of course, and assures her that next year she will see him on Yavin, which we know is what actually happens because in Rogue One, Bail Organa is on Yavin 4, and Mon tells Bail to take care of himself, to which Bail says, we do what we can. Now tear the out of this place. Yeah, that's right. They recast Bail Organa and all of a sudden he's throwing around the bomb. Bomb? Is that even a thing? Bomb? He's like a whole new man. During this Senate meeting, we actually see a couple familiar faces. And I don't just mean Bail Organa, as this senator that is speaking first is the species Tarlafar, recently seen in the Bad Batch Season 3 and in The Acolyte. But all the people who speak first are all on the side of the Empire, talking about how they lost all these Imperial officers. No one even mentions the dead Gormans, because they seem to be the villain. We then get a scene where 2 of the Bail Organa team are in this supply room. And while they're in this room, this double agent girl contacts the ISB. And this is where things get very interesting. We are told that this is one of Supervisor Yan's agents. Now, the reason that's so important is because this is Lonnie Yang. Lonnie is the informant for Luthen in the ISB. So why would Luthen's informant have a secret agent in Bail Organa's team? I really think that Luthen's up to something here, and I don't know what it is. He wants Mon Mothma to trust him again for something. But again, I have no idea right now what that could possibly be, so tell me your guess in the comments below. Why would he have Lonnie put a spy inside of Bail Organa's team? Maybe a failsafe just in case to kill Mon Mothma? But that doesn't seem very likely. But she gets caught trying to speak into this earpiece and has to kill the other member of the team. But back inside the Senate, Bail Organa is given the ability to speak, and he invokes Article 17252. Now, this article says that a senior senator, like Mon Mothma, in times of an emergency is able to take the floor freely. And clearly, after this Gorman massacre, it is a time of emergency. So Mon Mothma is granted the floor. Now, I'm not just going to sit here and reread word for word what she says. I would honestly not do it justice. I mean, come on, I'm not Mon Mothma. But this, much like the speech at the end of episode 8, has so much emotion in it, as she talks about how the Empire has taken away the difference between a truth and a lie. And while she's making the speech, as per usual, there's a million different things going on at the same time. Cassian is trying to make it up to her so that they can get out safely. Supervisor Legret is trying to shut this down so that this is not streamed to the public. But the door to shut this down has been locked by 2 what we assume to be rebels, as Mon Mothma continues to speak about the death of truth and how it is the ultimate victory of evil. Now, this is a pretty interesting scene to me. We see Clovis, her corrupt driver, almost look a little like he's contemplating his life. Maybe like he doesn't want to work for the ISB anymore, or maybe he wants to do the right thing. I guess he just won't be given that option. As well, Cassian's going to, But back in the Senate, Mon Mothma is saying that what happened on Gorman was an unprovoked genocide, and that causes an uproar in the Senate, as she explains that the truth has left the chambers of the Senate, and the monster, the Empire, is screaming the loudest. A monster that we've all helped create. A monster that will come for us all soon enough, just like it arrested Senator Oran last night. And she finishes it off by saying that monster is Emperor Palpatine, calling out directly the Emperor of the freaking galaxy. She's crazy. But the reason that she actually had to say this, because it's been established in canon before, is because in Star Wars Rebels, she says in this speech, which is also alluded to later in this episode, that she called out Palpatine specifically in the Senate. So she had to do the same thing in this second season. There's only a few things that needed to add up to make the canon consistent in this Andor Season 2, and this speech was one of them. And let's just say it did not disappoint. But that's just the beginning, because now the Great Escape has to commence. With about half the Senate cheering and half the Senate booing her out of the building, Mon Mothma begins to leave. And as she exits into the hall, she sees Cassian. It's crazy that it took almost 2 full seasons for these two characters to meet. But Cassian explains to her that he was at the Gorman Massacre yesterday, and that he saw everything. And then he tells her, I have friends everywhere. The code words to let her know that he works for Luthen. But Mon still doesn't trust Luthen. So Cassian continues. He says, I know your cousin Vel. We're the last survivors of Aldhani. I see her on Yavin. I live on Yavin. And as they exit the elevator and try to make their escape, they are stopped by the secret agent in Bale's team. As she pulls out a blaster and says, you're under arrest. But while she's distracted, Cassian pulls out his blaster and kills her. And Mon Mothma is shocked. She never sees people die in front of her like this. And as they begin to leave, Cassian gives her his jacket and tells her, welcome to the rebellion. As they make their way down to Mon's ship, Clorvis meets them. And like I said, it looks like he kind of has a change of heart. But as they're walking towards him, Mon Mothma says that he's an ISB spy. So Cassian immediately shoots him. And the two hop into her ship and Cassian flies them away. Back on Yavin, we see Vel, as she is now training new recruits. This was explained in episode 7 when she went to go have a meeting with Bix. And Vel pulls out a specific blaster and says, who does this belong to? And it's Melshi. Melshi was in the Narkina 5 prison with Cassian in Season 1, and they escaped together. He's also in Rogue One. But back on Coruscant, Mon and Cassian make it to the safe house that Bix and Cassian used to live in, and pretty much everyone is there. Everyone but Luthen. Clea is there, Erskine is there, Wilmon is there, but Wilmon is very injured and needs a doctor immediately. But instead of having Mon go with Cassian to Yavin 4, they want her to make another speech. So they need her to have a different way to get to Yavin. And as we know from Star Wars Rebels, that different way is the Ghost Crew. And we even see that speech that she makes in animation in Star Wars Rebels. As Cassian and Will arrive back on Yavin, we actually hear Draven say that the Gold Squadron will deliver Mon Mothma to Yavin. And that Gold Squadron is in fact the Ghost Crew. So a direct reference to one of the greatest animated series of all time, in my personal opinion. Draven even says that she's making a speech, and they need to broadcast it as far as possible. But Cassian tells him that there's a KX unit bagged up on the inside of the ship, the droid that he took from Gorman back in episode 7, the droid that eventually becomes K2. Then Cassian finally makes it back to his hut in the woods, where Bix is there waiting for him. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I thought Bix was going to die in this 3-episode arc, but somehow this was worse. Because as Cassian tells Bix that he is done with the rebellion, he's done fighting, because he just wants to go live with her, Bix just says nothing, because she knows how important Cassian is to the rebellion. Everybody's told her that, and she's not blind, she sees it too. But the only thing that's holding him back is her, so she has to leave. So the next morning when Cassian wakes up, Bix is gone. And she left this heart-wrenching message, telling Cassian how important he is to the rebellion and how he's going to make the difference in the war, and how she'd never forgive herself if she was the reason that Cassian stepped away and they lost the war. But the worst part is, she says, when it's done, when it's over and we've won, we can do all the things we ever wanted. Everything that we've known that we've missed, I will find you. Ugh, even just saying that is horrible. Because as we know, Cassian Andor dies on the beaches of Scarif, sacrificing his life for the cause, and Bix is not there. Now, do you think that Bix is actually still alive during the events of Rogue One? And if so, where is she? Tell me what you think in the comments, but oh my God, this was heartbreaking, but it's what had to be done. And just some incredible freaking writing. But just as Cassian loses Bix, he gains a best friend, as this episode ends with the reprogramming and waking up of K2SO, the droid companion of Cassian Andor, seen in Rogue One. And that ends episode 9. Honestly, after watching episode 8, I was like, there is no way that they could top that, and I think episode 9 did. Mon Mothma's speech, Bix's goodbye, K2SO is back, the whole escape from Coruscant, connections to Star Wars Rebels, it's just insane. These 2 episodes, back to back, episode 8 and episode 9 of season 2 of Andor, are some of the best Star Wars content we've ever received. I'm not talking about in the last 5 years or the Disney era. I'm talking some of the best Star Wars ever, period, end of sentence. That's how good this is. And I rank episode 9 right where I rank episode 8 at a 10 out of 10. And I don't give 10 out of 10s out lightly. These 2 episodes are masterpieces. And it begs the question, what the hell is coming next week? But I guess we'll just have to find out another time. Tell me what you think in the comment section below. What do you rate this episode out of 10? And if you have not already, go check out this breakdown I did for episode 8, which was just as good in this video right here.